the 2023 Lexus RZ450e. It's been confirmed. This is going to be a real vehicle. It's not a concept car. This is actually going to be produced. And I have been very excited to cover a real EV from Lexus because you know it's going to be a proper, well-made vehicle by Lexus, and they have real dealership support. Lexus hasn't really given us too much information on this vehicle. In fact, they've released it like 3 times, but they haven't released any press media details or anything like that. So that's why we're on good old Car and Driver's website, and we're going to be looking over this little article written by Joey Caparella. So thanks, Joey. Giving him a little shout out for writing this article, and let's see what he has to say, and I'll give my thoughts on this vehicle as well because I've driven just about every Lexus on this planet. Lexus has revealed the new 2023 RZ450e. That's what it's going to be called. At first, I thought it was going to be like an RX replacement, but it's not. It's actually supposed to be a smaller vehicle. I think he says it here. It's supposed to compete with like the Audi Q4 e-tron, the Mustang Mach-E, the Tesla Model Y, things like that. So, and this Nissan Ariya, never even heard of that, but it's got the Direct4 badge on the rear end of it, which I've done a video on the Lexus LFZ. I believe that's what the vehicle was called. It was an electric concept SUV, and this is pretty reminiscent to that, and it utilized the Direct4 technology, which is their new all-wheel drive system for their electric drivetrains, and this should be going on sale mid-2022. Might even be worth putting a deposit down for this, talking to your local Lexus dealership about it. But if we're going to talk about the looks, you know, we can kind of click this picture right here and click on View Gallery. We can kind of see what this thing looks like. From the rear, it kind of looks like a BMW X6, which is kind of crazy, but overall, I mean, the vehicle looks okay. The front end is decent. I suppose they still try to mimic the spindle grille. I mean, overall, this is not a bad looking vehicle. I just think that the wheels don't really match the kind of futuristic-esque design going on here, but they haven't released any pictures on the interior, but you know this is going to be built well. This is going to have a legitimate interior that doesn't creak and rattle. It's not going to have all these crazy panel gaps. It'll use legitimately nice materials, and it'll be a vehicle worth owning / leasing. And I'll talk more about leasing in a little bit. So that's the looks. You let me know in the comment section what you think about the exterior. And what Joey's saying here is what we know so far is it's going to have the Direct4 drivetrain, and it's going to be using 2 electric motors, one in the front and one in the rear. And each motor is going to be providing 200 horsepower and 221 pounds-feet of torque. So combined, almost 400 horses maybe. But obviously, we don't really know what the combined output is going to be, but this is going to be very potent is the point, and it's going to be immediate thrust since it's an EV, of course. And this will clearly make more power than the BZ4X Toyota, and I think that only makes 215 horsepower total, so this one motor is going to make almost as much as that vehicle does in total. And it's the luxury vehicle. It's a Lexus. It's going to be costing close to 50 grand or more, maybe even 60 grand, right? Since it's a new EV. And yeah, about 50 grand is what they're estimating here, Car and Driver. So, I mean, again, that could fluctuate, obviously. And I'm assuming this vehicle is going to do right around 300 to 350 miles of range. I feel like every car manufacturer kind of has like this agreement with each other that they're not going to go past 350 miles. It's very strange, but every new EV that keeps coming out only does like 300 miles of range. It's a complete waste. You know these vehicles can do better than that, but for whatever reason, they're really holding them back. This is still kind of that first generation of electric vehicles, so I definitely suggest you to simply lease this. Do not buy it. And we can kind of go over here to the Lexus press media site where journalists typically get their information, since this is the official source from Lexus directly. However, no information has been shared, just a bunch of pictures. And we can just assume by what every other electric car does that this is going to do around 300 miles. I mean, take for instance the Hummer, right? The new Hummer that recently came out, that crazy truck / SUV thing, does like 1,000 horsepower, weighs like 9,000 pounds. If you just take the electric batteries in that, cut the horsepower in half, or even into a quarter, you know, around 250 to 500 horsepower, and put it into a vehicle that weighs like less than 6,000 pounds or less than 5,000 pounds, dude, these vehicles can easily go over 500 miles of range. But for whatever reason, they're not making that. In fact, the only new electric car that's been released that actually does close to 500 miles is like the new Mercedes S-Class, the EQS, which that costs like $120,000. So who honestly cares about that? This stuff, like this RZ450e, this is stuff that normal humans can actually afford, and that's why I was pretty excited by this. And it could be a pretty cool daily driver. It's built by Lexus, proper dealership. You know, it's going to be a proper quality machine. But still, I would recommend you leasing this. This, in typical Lexus fashion, is not going to have the best resale value because, again, we're going to see other electric vehicles that come out that do 500 miles of range, 1,000 miles of range, and that's going to be the norm. And if you're stuck with these kind of 300-mile range, these kind of first-generation EV products, then they're going to be worthless, really. They're going to have like no resale value. So just lease it and then just dump it when the new ones come out, and that's really the best way, I think, to enjoy these products. And that's really it in terms of coverage on the RZ450. I mean, obviously there's no information on it. You have a basic idea of what it's going to be with what Lexus has released regarding the Direct4 all-wheel drive system, their twin electric motor design, you know, producing about 200 horsepower for each motor. So we can assume, you know, around 350, 400 horsepower for this thing. 0 to 60, maybe like under 5 seconds, probably, hopefully, right? That's what you're going to be expecting, but most importantly, it should be quiet. It should have a nice interior, and I think the government incentives are supposedly going up, maybe like $10,000 in like EV credit or something like that to help incentivize people to move into this stuff. And I get it. One guy was telling me, like, when you lease, you don't get that credit. That's not true. It goes to the manufacturer or whatever, and then it goes back to you in the form of a pretty substantial discount on a lease. So that's kind of how you take advantage of that. But yeah, this is definitely an EV that I'm interested in driving. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Thanks again for watching. Take care and goodbye.